Being brought up by your loving grandfather, having insane talent at sports and fighting, finding a few awesome ride or die friends and teachers, truly knowing in your heart that your parents were good, even though you don't have a single memory of them? The perfect recipe for a happy life. Or not actually.
That doesn't make no sense.
As he ends up eating a couple of crusty ass 1,000-year-old fingers and earning a bloodthirsty tenant. Imagine having Sukuna inside you.
What?
Disgusting!
Seriously, this guy would be yapping his mouth off in your brain when you're on a date saying you have no riz or bitches, and your life would be an absolute disaster.
So true.
As a result, Yuji Itadori's life has been a roller coaster ride of suffering at every point of the way since we've seen him in the story. But what if I told you Itadori's life and existence were all manufactured by one man? Or should I say, woman?
No way.
Yup, that's right. Itadori's anguish has no end because his entire life is a lie made by the one and only mastermind of 1,000 years, Kenjaku. Today we're breaking down Yuji Itadori's life and how he's caught up in the illusion of choice. You will learn 3 major things about Jujutsu Kaisen. Number 1, why Itadori is not actually human and his true identity. Number 2, how the entire story was orchestrated by Kenjaku 1,000 years ago. And number 3, the truth about Sukuna's resurrection and connection with Yuji Itadori. Let's begin with the very first time Yuji made an appearance. In chapter 1, he is put up against the sports teacher to keep his place in the occult club. My man straight up broke the world record for shot put and was even called the reincarnation of Mirko Krokop, an athlete that is still living today. While Yuji Itadori was also a sprinter, even Megami, who barely knew him at this point, noted how fast he was. This dude also jumped into a fight with a cursed spirit later, instinctively acting and saving his friends like a badass. He dealt considerable damage to a massive cursed spirit with his strength alone, because remember, he hadn't consumed Sukuna's finger yet. Heroism aside, it's clear that Yuji Itadori's physical strength and agility were much higher than any ordinary human from the get-go, and his abilities only got a crazy boost from consuming Sukuna's fingers, to the point that Choso himself calls Yuji a demon god. This is because in chapter 139, he notes that even in an injured state, Yuji Itadori now has fluid curse energy control along with unreal physical strength. Despite being a special grade himself, Choso was impressed with Yuji's fighting skills. In the beginning, it might have seemed like this superhuman strength and speed Yuji Itadori had was just another generic shonen trope. I mean, just an ordinary teenager is basically anime law code for the most special motherfuckers on this planet. That's how it goes, right?
He's out of line, but he's right.
But as we uncover more of Yuji Itadori's past, it's evident that nothing about him is just a generic coincidence. Even whilst having the protagonist's biggest power you will ever see, the lack of parents and a mysterious past, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, they had us the first half, I'm not gonna lie.
Yuji's origins were hinted at all the way back in the Shibuya arc chapter 106. After a long and anguishing battle to the gates of death with Yuji, Choso suddenly has a change of heart. He was hunting the killer of his dearest younger brothers, Iso and Keshisu, which was his duty as the eldest brother. Now, clearly, Yuji was in no condition to do some Naruto talk no jutsu, because we know that's the best method to defeat your opponents.
He's out of line, but he's right.
But instead, it was because Choso has a really weird throwback. More precisely, a memory of an event that has never happened was born inside Choso's mind. He sees himself and Yuji Itadori with his already demised brothers happily out on a picnic. What's even more is that in this memory, Yuji goes ahead and calls Choso Oni-san. or big brother too. This scene totally disorientates Choso to the point that he questions everything. I mean, my man would never want to bludgeon one of his little brothers to death, given how protective he was. Yet here, he was avenging his brothers against another brother?
That don't make no sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense at all. So what the heck was this? Are Yuji and Choso related? Near the end of the Shibuya incident, we get the answer. Or should I say, even more questions. When Choso reappears to save Yuji Itadori and stands up to Kenjaku. However, rather than referring to him as Suguru Geto or even the newly unveiled identity Kenjaku, Choso calls him Noritoshi Kamo. Nope, not this cannon fodder guy. The man Choso is referring to is none other than the evilest sorcerer in the history of Jujutsu and the biggest stain of the prestigious Kamo clan. But the confusion doesn't stop there, and that's why we're here to clarify everything, and you need to hit the notification bell to stay on the same page as the rest of the community, as Choso even calls this man his father?
It's not true. That's impossible.
That's right, he's actually the son of Noritoshi Kamo in a very twisted way, because he is one of the 9 Curse Womb death paintings created in the Meiji era by Kenjaku, which was 120 years ago. Choso and his brothers are half humans and half curses, as they had 3 parents: their mother, the cursed spirit who impregnated her, and Kenjaku, aka Noritoshi Kamo, who mixed his DNA in these births. And yeah, you heard that right. A cursed spirit smashed a woman. I know you're still processing that. The mother of these death paintings was extremely unfortunate because she had a special genetic makeup that began her misery. She gave birth to a half-human, half-cursed child, and naturally, her family and friends shunned her. While this pregnancy was mysterious, she had no choice except to run away, and she ended up at a temple in the mountains run by Jujutsu sorcerers. Here, Noritoshi Kamo found her and turned her into the subject for his experiments. In chapter 202, Kenjaku states that as he was working beside sorcerers, he wondered what would happen if he could advance cursed spirits to a higher level. This, along with Jump Giga's interview, confirmed that Kenjaku, as Noritoshi Kamo, had created the death paintings in order to create a superior race, a crossbreed between humans and cursed spirits. Thus, he made sure the woman would bear more children for research purposes. Hence, she had to undergo 9 terminated pregnancies, creating the death paintings that is Choso and his 8 brothers. However, much to Kenjaku's disappointment, all of them failed to be something extraordinary.
Emotional, damn it!
Even after their reincarnation at Mahito's hands, which is why he discarded them and gave them no value.
Emotional, damn it!
And this is where our boy Yuji Itadori comes in. Thanks to Choso's unique ability to sense the transformation of his younger brothers, no matter how far he is, in chapter 135, it was clear as day that Yuji is indeed Choso's brother. Following that reveal, Choso assumed the role of a big brother to Yuji Itadori, accompanying him after the horror of killing hundreds of people when Sukuna took over. We had certainly seen this memory plant thing earlier with our Chad boy Todo, when he suddenly realized that Yuji was actually his best friendo. But the fact that Choso could sense Yuji's approaching death in chapter 135 proves that his condition was actually different from Todo's, and they were truly related. What's more is that Gege Akatami himself shot down the theory that Yuji has a hidden memory manipulation technique in his interview with Mando Kobayashi. In fact, even Sukuna looked shocked in chapter 105 when he realized that something odd was happening with Choso. So it's not another one of his techniques either. While we still have no clue how these memories take root in the minds of Yuji's opponents, Choso asks Yuji to remember that his father also had stitches on his forehead like Noritoshi Kamo. And chapter 143 confirmed time that Choso wasn't just going through separation anxiety, but he was right about having the same parent as Yuji. But it wasn't his father, rather Yuji's mother.
What happened to the original plot of the movie?
You heard that right. After being killed and revived by Yuta, Yuji has a dream that shows him as a baby being held by his father Jin, with Grandpa Itadori trying to warn him about the woman he is with. And surprise, surprise, a woman with scars on her forehead just like Geto shows up, calling Grandpa Itadori father-in-law. Like, bruh, Kenjaku is clearly ready to go to any lengths to do his plan, right? Conjuring up his inner Orochimaru, actually taking that shit a step further by having sex as a woman and giving birth?
See, now that's some bullshit.
Like, goddamn! Anyway, this confirms Yuji's birth was by Kenjaku in a woman's body. So Yuji Itadori is actually not a normal human being. In fact, there's a chance that Kenjaku took over the body of another woman who had a special genetic makeover just like Choso's mother to create Yuji Itadori. Seeing how none of his actions are futile, Kenjaku must have picked his vessel carefully. Thus, Yuji could be partly a cursed spirit, which means in a very odd way, meaning he killed his own brothers unknowingly. He didn't even know.
He can't keep getting away with it!
Of course, this doesn't really make sense to Yuji Itadori, and whilst he gained an older brother, Kenjaku has been more involved in his life than even he realizes. In chapter 160, having begun the culling games, Kenjaku visits a character we had seen at the very beginning of this series, Sasaki.
Who?
Bruh, it's this chick from the occult club who almost died thanks to Sukuna's finger in chapter 1, all because she had to play Daredevil. So why the heck would our antagonist care about such a side character we all forgot about? You've already forgot her name. It's Sasaki, right? Worry not, guys. Kenjaku was fulfilling his duties. Sasaki was one of the people who lived within the colonies of the culling game that Kenjaku helped take outside the barrier if they chose. He straight up calls Yuji his son and thanks Sasaki for being a friend to Yuji Itadori during his time in a regular high school, which means that Kenjaku had been keeping an eye on Yuji all this time, even when he was in high school. Remember, it's only because of the occult club that Yuji picked up and eventually ingested Sukuna's finger. Kenjaku is such a menace to the point that he went out of his way to thank Sasaki simply for creating the perfect opportunity for Yuji to become Sukuna's vessel, because it would have been even more difficult for him and his plan to make Yuji pick up the finger willingly. At the end of the day, this solidifies that Yuji is the product of Kenjaku's perfect experimentation, since a compatible vessel is only born once in 1,000 years, and there's just a 1 in a million chance that a cursed spirit like Sukuna is reincarnated. There's no doubt that Kenjaku's involvement was for this very reason. He wanted to create the perfect vessel for Ryumen Sukuna in the form of Yuji Itadori, all because he wants to revive the once human sorcerer who is a terrifying cursed object, ready and just waiting for his chance to reincarnate in his full form. When he was alive, even the most brutal sorcerers did not kill him, and Sukuna also traversed a millennia through his indestructible fingers. Think about that. This dude was actually built different, so you have to make a vessel that's built different like him. Now these are the same fingers that no one could destroy for 1,000 years. Not even Satoru freaking Gojo could make a scratch on them. Therefore, despite left scattered at different places, these fingers continued to gain power, even powering up finger bearer cursed spirits. Certainly, no ordinary human could become a vessel for Sukuna because of his ultimate understanding of curse energy, Jujutsu, and his full power being way too vast for a normal vessel. The weak probability we talked about earlier totally makes sense now. And of course, Kenjaku understood that he needed to create Yuji Itadori to be able to withstand Sukuna's power. This is why Itadori can take over control of his body and give it up willingly, for instance. seconds. Any other ordinary vessel would lose control instantly. Even Sukuna was shocked that Itadori had that ability.
Now, Adil just brought up a great point, because after showcasing this unique ability, Gojo was skeptical if Itadori can hold his own against Sukuna with more fingers being eaten, and this doubt turned into reality in the Shibuya incident. Nanako, Mimiko, and Jogo single-handedly raised Yuji's finger count to 15 in the span of just a few minutes. This, coupled with how Yuji was already horribly injured, led to Sukuna taking over, so even the perfect vessel was unable to suppress such a surge of power within him from Sukuna. Sukuna is most definitely something unheard of and represents an immortalizing evolution. As Kenjaku admitted, he has a very keen interest in evolution, and even his end goal of the Culling Games is to witness the chaos that creates a new form of cursed energy itself. So, don't go being a silly willy and hit that notification bell now to never miss an update on our Jujutsu Kaisen videos, because we already covered this in detail recently. Furthermore, Sukuna completely understands the core of cursed energy, more than cursed spirits themselves, and in his own words, true Jujutsu. He is one of the enlightened beings in the series. In fact, he killed Jogo with fire itself. I mean, imagine killing a being made out of fire, with their own element. That has to be the biggest L I have ever seen. In chapter 181, Ryu, another sorcerer from the past, described sorcerers like Sukuna as natural disasters. This terminology is perfect, as just like natural disasters, these sorcerers transcend the limits of an ordinary power and become a world-level calamity. And like something that's natural, they have no feelings or emotional influence to their carnage. Sukuna's growth in becoming the Heian era's terror goes back to the manga's statement that he is truly someone honoured by the heavens. After his death, Sukuna was able to defeat death itself by becoming a cursed spirit. This was through his comprehension of Jujutsu, which allowed him to transcend into a completely new form. All of this must be quite fascinating to Kenjaku, as he too had 1,000 years to understand and study cursed energy. Kenjaku even states in Kashimo, which was 600 years into finding sorcerers for the Culling Game, that he has never seen a sorcerer stronger than Sukuna. Listen, I know I'm hearing you loud and clear. It wasn't me that said it. It was Kenjaku, okay? I'm sorry, Gojo fans. So Kenjaku's interest in Sukuna and his revival makes all the more sense now. In fact, there's a chance that all the death paintings were created as he was inspired by Sukuna. As he said in chapter 202, Kenjaku is chasing evolution, but he clarifies further that his goal is to seize Tengen and forcefully merge her with the non-sorcerer population of Japan. He is a wildly curious mind with a major psychopathic streak who just wants to see the limits of cursed energy and what happens in extraordinary circumstances of chaos that only he can create. He welcomes the fact that Sukuna is planning some evil path of his own, which will just add to the chaos that Kenjaku very much desires. After all, he already said he doesn't desire a world without cursed spirits and wants to bring back the vicious Heian era, the golden age of cursed techniques, and who better to kick it off than the icon of terror himself, Sukuna. Of course, none of this would have been possible if Kenjaku hadn't planned the biggest deceit in the entire manga, which is sealing Satoru freaking Gojo. From chapter 1, we know that Gojo is the strongest sorcerer. He is another enlightened being in the series, whose birth itself shifted the balance of the universe. He is an anomaly who believes he can even defeat Sukuna at his peak. There is not a single person in the Jujutsu world who can hold a candle to him, be it a special grade curse like Jogo or heavily restricted superhumans like Toji. It's clear that as long as he remained standing, the Jujutsu world would not collapse because he had two overpowered techniques: mesmerizing blue eyes and that gorgeous face.
Why are you gay?
I mean, the 6 eyes and limitless. That's what I was meant to say. Of these, users with 6 eyes had proven to be the biggest hurdles in Kenjaku's plan to sabotage Tengen's merger with a star plasma vessel. Over the centuries, Kenjaku was defeated by 2 of them, leading him to kill a 6 eyes user 1 month after birth along with a star plasma vessel. But at that time of the merger, another vessel and another Six Eyes user still reappeared. This is because Six Eyes users like Gojo are connected to Tengen and the Star Plasma vessel by fate. So from 1000 years worth of experience, Kenjaku realized that there was just no point in killing Gojo either. The only way to set his plans into motion was for Kenjaku to trap Gojo in a way he was least expecting. And he did exactly that, by shocking him thoroughly with the body of his once best friend and the other half of the strongest duo, Suguru Geto, the only one he had killed by his own hand. It sent Gojo spiraling for the briefest moment, and that was enough for the prison realm, a cursed object, to lock and capture him. Removing Gojo weakened the Jujutsu Society in a very systematic way. Sorcerers began fighting each other and clans rushed to claim superior status over others. Whatever allies Gojo had were now branded criminals, as the corrupt higher-ups sided with Kenjaku, who even assumed the position of the Kamo clan head. The chaos Kenjaku aspired for had begun the very moment Gojo was sealed. Thus, everything in Yuji's life, from his very existence to his choice to become a sorcerer, were all planned by Kenjaku. Itadori had dedicated his entire life to dying in order to lessen the evil in the world, but so far the bad has far surpassed the good. Yuji's reality is the epitome of despair, inconsequence, and the sheer truth of what it means to be intertwined with the despair-filled world of Jujutsu. All his life choices have been an illusion because they were all predetermined for him, but to some extent, what he does beyond his identity as Sukuna's vessel is something that is up to him. How he walks the path of enlightenment, like his sensei or his biggest enemy, is what will determine his worth as a Jujutsu sorcerer. It comes back to the concept of how enlightenment in Buddhism relieves a person of suffering. With every happening in his life, Itadori has learned new things to adapt himself to, even though they might be trivial or depressing. And whilst he has no innate talent for cursed techniques, he has learned to use one of the hardest skills of cursed energy, which is Black Flash. Mastering this is absolutely no joke, as Nanami described it as a zone where manipulating cursed energy becomes like breathing. However, Yuji can use this difficult skill almost at will, as he did against Mahito. Clearly, Black Flash marks a milestone for a sorcerer because it is the purest form of understanding the essence of cursed energy. The manga even states that for those who have experienced Black Flash as compared to those who have not, their understanding of the essence of cursed energy is immeasurable. So Yuji is clearly walking the path of enlightenment, and one day he will unlock Sukuna's technique when he acquires understanding of true Jujutsu. After all, as Principal Yaga said, no Jujutsu sorcerer dies without regrets. Itadori is already burdened with the weight of killing hundreds of people, and he doesn't even know the truth about his birth. When he does, he will be overcome with so much grief and regret. Hence, the only way for Itadori to cope with his reality whilst also fulfilling his wish is to accept his circumstances and find his true self. Kenjaku, in a really twisted way, gave his own son a dark fate. Because of Yuji's role as a cog and a vessel, he is the only person in the world that can get rid of Sukuna by dying himself with the fingers. Yuji's destiny either way is death with or without Sukuna, telling us that he never had a choice in the first place. This is something he acknowledged as early as season 1 to the principal, that he will die for the world. And whilst Yuji's fate is pretty much sealed, we can only hope that the people who are by his side continue to stay there throughout all the hardships he still has to face. In that way, at least one of Grandpa Itadori's wishes for his grandson will come true, as he will die surrounded by people. But in the meantime, you should really go and watch our video discussing the concept of enlightenment through Gojo and Sukuna to understand why it's the cornerstone of the Jujutsu Kaisen story.